Well, hello. I thought it might be time for another story time, and this time I want to read The Bunyip of Berkeley's Creek, which was one of my favorites as a child. I actually won an autographed copy of it, autographed by Jenny Wagner, the author, when I was about 9. So I wanted to share this story with you, but before I share the story, since it is an Australian book, I thought there might be a few words you would not understand or a few creatures in it that weren't familiar to you. So before we begin the story, let me share a few little insider tips with you. So you may not know these two words, bunyip and billabong. A bunyip is a mythical creature, and a billabong is a pond, and both of these words originate from Aboriginal people. These are the native people who lived in Australia before white people came from Europe. And so bunyip is a creature that doesn't really exist, like a yeti or Bigfoot, but it's the Australian version of it. And then a billabong is the place where they often were understood to exist or live. Another couple of creatures that I wanted to share with you are real creatures. They're not mythical creatures, but they're not seen in anywhere else except Australia, so the rest of the world might think they're mythical. In fact, this particular creature, when Europeans first came to Australia and they sent back a stuffed version of this, they made a taxidermy version. The people back in England thought that they were joking and that they had sewn together pieces of 3 different creatures. This is a platypus, and as you can see, it has a bill like a duck and webbed feet, but then it has a tail almost like a beaver and a body that looks a bit like an otter's body. So it's quite a special creature. And it's also special because it's one of only 2 mammals which lay eggs, and the other one is the echidna. Both of them are from Australia. So that's one of my favorite creatures. That's the platypus, and he's in our story today. And then also the wallaby. You may have heard of a kangaroo before, but this is a wallaby, which was related to the kangaroo. And actually in Australia there are all kinds of different marsupials, they're called, that are of all different sizes. They look like a kangaroo, but they're all different sizes, from this little kangaroo mouse all the way up to a big kangaroo. And as you can see, this one is as tall as a man, although that kangaroo is standing on tippy toes, so you know. I thought you might also like to see one from our family last year when we went to Australia. This is Kieran feeding a wallaby. So wallaby's kind of the medium-sized one, and we have a wallaby in our story today. And then another creature that you might not have seen much before in our story today is called the emu. And here is one that we also saw last year in Australia with my daughter Zoe and her fiance Jathan standing beside him for scale. And this is the second largest bird in the world after the ostrich. And as you can see in my pronunciation guide there, Americans often say emu, but we should call it an emu. So now you know. So, having shared all of those things, let's get on with our story. The Bunyip of Berkeley's Creek by Jenny Wagner, and the pictures are by Ron Brooks. Late one night, for no particular reason, something stirred in the black mud at the bottom of Berkeley's Creek. The fish swam away in fright, and the night birds in the trees hid their heads under their wings. When they looked again, something very large and very muddy was sitting on the bank. "What am I?" it murmured. "What am I? What am I? What am I?" And the night birds quickly hid their heads under their wings again. In the morning, the thing was still sitting there, scraping the mud off itself to see what was underneath. "What am I?" it kept saying. "What am I?" But the night birds were all asleep. A passing platypus solved the problem. "You are a bunyip," he said. "Bunyip," murmured the bunyip contentedly. "Bunyip." Then he sat up straight and called out, "What do I look like?" But the platypus had dived into the creek. "Am I handsome?" called the bunyip. "Am I?" But nobody answered him, and the Bunyip went on sitting there for a long time, lost in thought. Presently, a Wallaby came by to drink at the creek. "What do bunyips look like?" asked the Bunyip. "Horrible," said the Wallaby. "They have webbed feet and feathers." "Fine, handsome feathers?" said the Bunyip hopefully. "Horrible feathers," said the Wallaby firmly, and finished her drink and hopped off. "Handsome webbed feet?" called the Bunyip, but there was no answer. The Bunyip sighed and walked off to find someone else. There was a rustling in the bushes behind him, and suddenly an emu shot past. "Wait!" called the Bunyip, running after him. "What do bunyips look like?" The emu stopped and considered. "They have fur," he said at last, "and tails." "How many tails?" asked the Bunyip. "One to each Bunyip," replied the emu. "Fine, handsome tails," said the Bunyip. "Horrible tails," said the emu, "and even more horrible fur." And he settled his feathers and crouched down low and streaked off into the distance. The Bunyip wandered sadly along the creek. "Will someone tell me what bunyips look like?" he said to anyone who would listen. But there was no answer. Further along the creek, he met a man. The man was busy with a notebook and pencil and did not look at the Bunyip. "Shh!" he said. "I'm busy." The Bunyip waited for a long time, and then he said very slowly and clearly, "Can you please tell me what bunyips look like?" "Yes," said the man without looking up. "Bunyips don't look like anything." "Like nothing," said the Bunyip. "Like nothing at all," said the man. "Are you sure?" said the Bunyip. "Quite sure," said the man, and looked right through him. "Bunyips simply don't exist." The Bunyip was shaken. Then he sighed a long, deep sigh. "What a pity," he murmured. "What a pity, what a pity." And he walked slowly back to his waterhole. Then he fished his belongings out of the water, packed them in his Bunyip bag, and walked away. No one saw him go. The Bunyip walked all day, and just as the sun was setting, he came to a quiet, still billabong. "This will do," said the Bunyip to himself. "No one can see me here. I can be as handsome as I like." And he unpacked his bag and laid his Bunyip comb and mirror out on the sand and put his billy on to boil. No one saw him, and no one spoke to him. But late that night, for no particular reason, something stirred in the black mud at the bottom of the billabong. The Bunyip put his comb down in surprise and stared. Something very large and very muddy was sitting on the bank. "What am I?" it murmured. "What am I? What am I?" The Bunyip jumped up in delight. "You are a Bunyip!" he shouted. "Am I? Am I really?" asked the other Bunyip. And then, "What do I look like?" "You look just like me," said the Bunyip happily. And he lent her his mirror to prove it.